Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Welcome to the School Board Candidate Forum for the Monroe County School Corporation. My name is Carrie Mixa. I am a community member locally employed by a small business. I have two children who attend MCCSC schools, and I am chair of the Indiana Coalition for Public Education of Monroe County. ICPE is the organizer of this forum. We'd like to acknowledge the many co-sponsors of this evening: Monroe County Education Association, League of Women Voters, Bloomington-Monroe County, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and the University Alliance for Racial Justice. A big thanks goes to CATS for filming this event. This session will be recorded and will be on CATS for viewing later. Before we hear from the candidates who have generously taken their time to be here tonight, I want to take a moment to tell you about the Indiana Coalition for Public Education, Monroe County. ICPE has been in our community for 10 years. ICP advocates for all children to have high-quality, equitable, well-funded schools that are subject to democratic oversight by their communities. ICPE consists of caregivers, parents, grandparents, educators, and other members of our community who care deeply about our public schools, just like all of you here tonight. Some of you may be members. Others of you should consider joining us. We are nonprofit and nonpartisan, which means we don't favor one political party over another, but we do favor candidates and elected officials who advocate for and act in support of our public school systems. Indiana public school boards are nonpartisan. Public education, the education of our community, our children, is a nonpartisan issue. ICPE believes that having an elected school board goes to the heart of the publicness of our public schools. Elected school board members are residents of our community, and it is their job to help keep our schools responsive and attuned to our community. It's an important role, and we are grateful to the candidates for stepping forward. Public schools are the heart of our community. To learn more about us, you can visit our website at keepeducationpublic.org. A quick explanation of how voting works for school board positions. There are 3 open school board districts in this election. Even though they come from specific districts, they are at large. This means that no matter where you live in the MCCSC school district, you can vote for all 3 district seats. As I mentioned, the candidates are nonpartisan. If you vote straight ticket, you still need to vote for these seats. They are located near the end of the ballot. Please tell your family and friends that. On to tonight. I'm going to pass the mic to Lisa Marie Napoli, our moderator. She will introduce the candidates and explain the rules. Lisa Marie is director of the Political and Civic Engagement Program known as PACE at IU. Much of her work focuses on training students as facilitators to lead challenging conversations about a wide range of public issues. She maintains an emphasis on enhancing leadership, increasing public voice for community health, integrating voice into policy decisions, and educating for democracy. For the last 25 years, she has experienced as an educator, facilitator, mediator, conflict coach, and public engagement consultant. We could not have a better person to host this event. And with that, I turn the mic over to Lisa Marie. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome tonight. Glad to see this beautiful space, new space at Tri-North filled. And I'm going to move this back just a hair. Okay, there we go. Great. Also, I'd like to, just thank ICPE for this event tonight, all of you for being here, and Debbie Fish, thank you for she's been in this role before, and she helped to bring me in and coach me up here. So thank you so much. Again, I'd like to start tonight with just a quote, just to sort of arrive all together as community and to just take a deep breath together so we can be better listeners and hear what our candidates have to say tonight as a part of our evening. So this quote is by an author, Margaret Wheatley, who's written a lot about leadership in the new science, and she's one of my favorites. And the quote reads, "There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about." And that's what we're here today to find out, what the candidates care about for this education system. So So thank you all. Again, we'll after a moment of pause. What I'd like to do next is give you a sense of the overall format for tonight's forum, so we're all on the same page, and then we'll go, move to our candidates, who you're here to hear from much more than myself. So first, we're going to sort of set the tone with some introductions and some guidelines for today. Then each candidate will have a chance to introduce themselves and the reason they're here, right? Some of the things that are driving them to run for this position. And they'll have 2 minutes each. Keeping track of the time and respecting the time is a big part of this process. So that's what we're here to do for information sharing this evening. After that, we'll have some starting questions that I received from the Indiana Coalition for Public Education. We'll start with those 3 questions, and then we would love to be receiving your questions from the audience. That really is the bulk of our time. So I assume I see a lot of people with pens and note cards and that sort of thing, and there'll be people going around to collect them from ICPE. So that will be the bulk of our time together, and candidates will typically have 1 minute to respond to those questions. If it seems like there's something that maybe needs a little more time, we'll determine that as it comes. And then finally, we'll just have a brief summary wrap up, and the candidates will have an opportunity for 30-second closing remarks. That is the plan for today. Would like to remind everyone, if we could, I have some suggested guidelines, because my goal as a moderator is to make this as productive as possible for everyone included. So in that respect, I would love to ask you all to refrain from applause for things you're hearing. We'll have a chance to welcome them all and applaud them at the beginning here in a moment and then at the end. But otherwise, if we can hold back from any voices, noises, you might want to shut off those cell phones, anything of that sort from speaking or shouting, we would like to not have that happen. So that's one thing for everyone, especially audience members. And for the candidates, just a few friendly, courteous reminders of being respectful of each other's comments, staying brief and meeting the time limits. That's really crucial to keeping it moving. Paying attention to our timekeeper there, if you want to raise your hand, everybody saw you before. Aiming to be as clear and concise as possible, which I think you all do a good job in reading a lot of your work, and also listening to others to understand first as you're listening to your fellow candidates. And if you disagree, that's fine, but we always like to emphasize curiosity and not hostility. So those are the guidelines for tonight that we strongly encourage and that I will be enhancing as your facilitator tonight, if that's the word, not enforcing, enhancing. So it's a tough one there. But the school board job is such a big one, and thank you all. I see many board members out here and here, just as candidates and otherwise, just we're here to be able to share information with you all, to gain knowledge about their views and perspectives and how they present what they care about with the school board. Their job is a big one, to govern at the broadest level, MCCSC, and it's a big job with the budgets, approving them, choosing a superintendent as needed as it comes up, authorizing plans for maintenance and construction, all that good stuff, and many other policy issues that are too numerous to mention that you all know much about. So with that in mind, I will briefly introduce names. I'll go straight down the row, and then the first round we'll just start moving down, and then I will mix up who begins. So it's not always starting at one end, so we'll keep it fair and balanced as much as we possibly can. So hopefully that all makes sense to everyone. Looking for nods and sounds good. Okay. All right, wonderful. Thank you for the nodding feedback. All right, so for District 1, our school board candidates who are with us tonight, well, and not with us tonight, I'll announce everyone, is Tabitha L. Crouch. And let's see, Brian Turner is not participating at the moment. That may change. We'll just slide him on in if he's able to make it. And then our third candidate is Aaron B. Wyatt. So that's for District 1. And for District 3, we have John Hayes. And then we have Daniel O'Neill and Ashley Pirani. So on the ballots, you will also find District 7, who is the incumbent running unopposed, Brandon Schur, who is with us tonight as an audience member. So thank you for your wave. And that's that's setting the stage for you all. So hopefully that puts us in a good place to get started. And I'll turn to our timekeeper. So we're going to have 2 minutes each for each candidate to give their introductory remarks. And we'll start with Tabitha. Thank you.
Hi.
Oh, and I should get a round of applause for all of them being here. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, and you could just begin.
As she mentioned, I'm Tabitha Crouch. I have two.
I'm going to fix your mic, yes. So all of you have 2 mics. One is for cats, and the one in the middle of the table is for the room. So make sure you get that's as close as we could get it to you.
And I'm really short. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm
better.
Tabitha Crouch, and I have 2 students at MCCSC, and we have experience at 4 different schools total. Currently, they are at Marlin Elementary and Bloomington High School North. I went to Edgewood, but have lived in Bloomington for most of my life. I became interested in running for the board because of my concerns over student safety, faculty safety, my desire to refocus on academics. I feel like a lot of times some of the board meetings have gone very political in the last year, which comes naturally with being in a global pandemic, but I want to stay focused on the academic side of things. And I also want to give parents and the community a voice at the board meetings. In my career as a communications specialist, I feel like I have the skills to add value to the school board. I help create policies and communicate about policies during the pandemic, so I have experience delivering different messages to different stakeholders. So yeah, I hope to join the board this year.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Erin, you and John will have to share the mic. So the middle one, you want to put it towards you? Yeah.
Does this work?
I think so. Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Wyatt, and I am running for this MCCSC Board of Trustees because I want to ensure a quality public education for all students. And I believe that we should achieve that in a holistic manner in which we kind of view the student as a whole and look at all the aspects such as making sure students are challenged so that they can be encouraged to achieve their highest potential, and make sure that they are engaged by utilizing a curriculum that promotes engagement with the community and can allow them to enter the workforce and be contributing to the economy of Monroe County and the state of Indiana. I want students to be able to be healthy at school by surrounding them with licensed professionals who can attend to their physical, mental, and psychosocial health. And I want them to be in a safe environment while they are at school, and throughout the time that they are in the school building, make sure that they feel supported and that their needs are met and tailored to their individual needs. And I will kind of take the approach or view my position through the lens of a mother. I have 3 children in MCCSC. They're all here tonight, but I have one in elementary, one in middle school, and one in high school. And I am also a registered nurse of the last 20 years. I am also in higher education. So I see the end product of the K through 12 system. And I also am a former employee of MCCSC, so I have that unique perspective as well as a former employee of health services. Thank you.
Okay. All right. John, you want to move the mic towards you? And thank you.
I'm John Hayes. I've been been around Bloomington all my life. I'm running for school board to bring some safety to the students and teachers, represent the parents who are trusting the school board to make the right decisions for the children and the teachers. I'm still involved with the school system, not as much as I used to be. I used to work at the school system, bus driver, a custodian, and I still keep booked for Bloomington South. And I just want to see all the students have an equal education. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Daniel?
Sure. Excuse me. First off, I want to really express my thanks to all the sponsors for hosting us tonight and actually for all the candidates who are willing to stand up here. This is a tough thing to do, I can attest to right now. Second, I want to really ask everyone here to please vote yes on the MCCSC referendum. I managed the last MCCSC referendum campaign, and it is incredibly important. This time I'm not managing the referendum campaign. This time I'm running for school board because I want to see the promise of a quality public education made available to students in MCCSC regardless of identity or background. Public schools, properly supported, are the greatest engine of social justice and upward mobility that exist. A quality education provides people with the ability to fully function as citizens in a democracy, to acquire the skills to earn a living, and to become lifelong learners through reading, culture, and the arts. I currently serve as the Department Chair of Anatomy and Physiology at Ivy Tech Community College. Altogether, I've been a teacher for over 2 decades, including earning a master's degree in education and teaching the teacher education program at Indiana University. I graduated from Bloomington North and coached their Science Olympiad team for 7 years. I've won major teaching awards at both IU and Ivy Tech. I've also been involved in local politics for most of my life, and I understand the importance of providing clear explanations of my principles and positions, listening to other points of view, compromising to move forward where necessary. I will bring to the school board my personal knowledge of MCCSC, as well as the skills I've built over my career as an educator. At the present time, we need to keep pace with the increasing educational requirements for knowledge-based work in order to prepare students for living wage jobs and enter higher education. We need to integrate better with Ivy Tech, which provides high-quality vocational education as well as an affordable transfer pathway for 4-year degrees. And we need to ensure that we serve the diverse needs of high-ability, average, and remedial students equally effectively. This also means continuing to improve how we identify and serve both high-ability and special needs students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Thank you very much, and I hope I'll earn your vote on November 8th.
Okay, Ashley. You got it? There you go.
All right. How's that? Okay. They said we're good. So, wait for her to sit back down. Good evening. First, I want to thank ICPE and Carrie Mitzka for putting together this forum, as well as Lisa Marie Napoli for moderating this evening. And I want to thank you all for joining. These kinds of discussions are just some of the reasons that I love our MCCSC community so much. And I look forward to sharing my vision with you all tonight. My name is Ashley Pirani, and I am running to be the next school board trustee for District 3. I've been in tune with public education in Monroe County for nearly a decade, whether that's working on school board campaigns, showing up to school board meetings to speak, or canvassing in our community for the referendum. I've been there. I'm also a mother of 2 children at Highland Park and have the honor of being our PTO president. As a parent, I have a vested interest in public education, and I'm regularly engaged with a wide array of individuals who also have a strong background and connection to public education. Being connected to our schools through my children and on the PTO gives me access to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in our community. I've had many discussions with former and current teachers, students and staff and parents, and I always ask them what it is that they see when they look at our community and at our school community, and I want to bring that insight to the board. My priorities are simple. If elected, I will advocate for and support policies that keep our students, teachers, and staff safe, utilizing verified data alongside experts. I'm committed to increasing equity in our schools so that all students, especially those that come from marginalized backgrounds, have access to a quality education. And finally, I want to help create policies that support teachers and let them do what they do best. I hope I earn your vote on or before November 8th.
Okay. All right, thank you all so much for your introductory comments and giving everyone a sense of who you are and what you want to bring to the school board. So thank you all so much. So the starting question, again, these first three were submitted from the Indiana Coalition for Public Education. We're going to start, I think, just logically, it makes sense maybe to start with Aaron and then go down, and when Ashley's done, then Tabitha, and then the next one we'll start with John, and we'll just move down the row like that. So the first question is, and you'll have 60 seconds to answer it each, what are the biggest challenges facing the Monroe County Community School Corporation?
Ready to start? Okay. So what are the biggest challenges facing the Monroe County School Corporation? I think that there are a lot of things that the school does well, but there are things where we could make improvements. I know that one of the biggest challenges that families have faced recently has been that with the transportation department. That is a question that comes up very often, but personally, I know that this year we've experienced a vast improvement over last year, and I know that changes have already been made to make improvements with staggered start times, and from what I understand, bus times are running much more efficiently. I also believe that another challenge that maybe people don't realize is meeting the health needs of our students. The Center for Disease Control, the Indiana State Code, the American Academy of Pediatrics all recommend that there should be a registered nurse for one registered nurse for every 750 students, and we're falling way far behind that with MCCSC. So that is something I would like to see addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and John.
The biggest concern I have is transportation. As a former bus driver, and I know how these bus drivers feel. They don't get paid enough and don't get that many hours during the day, and they don't get paid in the summer. And then safety for the schools. I think we need to look at better SROs and how they can be provide the safety for all the students, teachers, and faculty, and the public.
Thank you. Daniel?
I think my colleagues up here have identified some real issues that we have with MCCSC. Transportation and safety are certainly factors we need to consider. My perspective, teaching at Ivy Tech, I lead the anatomy physiology program there, which is the gateway for really all the health sciences, which is where, the federal government forecasts half of the economic growth. And what I see coming out of MCCSC are not students prepared as well as they could be. And I don't want to say they're badly prepared by any means. MCCSC is a great school corporation, and we want to keep it that way. But we see students who could do a better job of being ready to sort of report to class on time, complete their assignments as they're going through. And these are really the same challenges school districts are facing everywhere. It's the same challenges we see from the other schools in our partnered areas. The pandemic has really messed up so many things, of course. It was very difficult to deal with from my own perspective, teaching anatomy of all subjects. That was a difficult one to move mid-semester to being virtual, if you can imagine a more three-dimensional science. But we need to ensure that students are prepared with the rigorous education that they deserve to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And Ashley, if you want to move that mic, thank you for juggling that, everyone.
So when I think about things that could be improved with our schools, the first part is equity. And I'm really happy to see that our district has adopted a strategic plan that heavily focuses on equity. When I think to how we have things set up right now, I have questions of why are our ALPS students, our high achieving students, going all the way across town when we could be at a school that has more priority populations so that we can hopefully encompass them a little more. We also know that we have some inequities with our school boundary lines. I was a part of a reparations group that presented this February to the community about racial restrictions in housing. And with that, it showed that our school boundary lines suffered when that occurred, and we haven't corrected that yet. So those are some things that I think are some real challenges for our school and that I want to work towards.
Okay, very good. Thank you all. And the second question from ICPE. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you all. Sorry about that. Sorry, Tabitha, please.
No problem. I think one of the biggest issues facing MCCSC is a lack of trust and support from the community. And I think that some clear, transparent communication can help solve that. And I've seen improvements in the last year and that are moving in that direction. I think that the board needs to be receptive to feedback, and one of my largest concerns is school safety. We know that there are guns in our schools. It's evident, and we need to be more proactive about how to stop this from continuing to happen.
Thank you. Apologize about that. That's creature of habit when I got to the end of the row. So, all right. So the next question from ICPE is, and we'll start with John this time and move down, and we will remember to circle back, of course. That was a great segue, actually. It has to do with school safety. So, and I think since this has a bit of two parts to it, maybe we'll do 90 seconds. So what types of school safety strategies would you favor in our schools to prevent violence and to promote a positive school climate? So again, school safety strategies would you favor in the schools to prevent violence and promote a positive school climate? And John, whenever you're ready.
I'd like to see the SROs be armed again for the safety of all students and faculty and staff and the public. And I think as far as the fighting, you said?
Excuse me?
You said fighting or?
Violence.
Violence?
Preventing violence.
I think violence comes with, it starts at home also. I think the parents need to be more responsible. If their kids get in trouble, then they need to have sit down and talk with them, and there need to be repercussions at home as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure,
And
I'm
Daniel?
glad John had to go first on this one. This is a complicated issue. School safety is something I deal with really every day. In my role at Ivy Tech, we've had our own challenges with this. It's of course different in the K through 12. And it's different really between elementary and high school. We need to have strategies in place to both prevent violence to the extent that we can. And part of that is done with having clear behavioral expectations that are fairly and compassionately enforced. And it is really important that we maintain that kind of healthy learning environment. One thing any educational psychologist can tell you is that students who feel engaged are less likely to essentially drift into other areas, to think about engaging in violence, to think about the various social conflicts that inevitably lead to violence at this age group. We need to support students through them. We need to give them healthy outlets to deal with that. The weapons issue is a very serious one. You cannot have a healthy learning environment when people feel afraid for their safety. Again, I feel this as a faculty member myself. We're terrified about these incidents. We've mercifully not had any at Ivy Tech, and we're happy to do that. I can't go into the details of our security strategy at Ivy Tech. These have to be kept confidential on purpose, but I understand that the general principles. What we do not want to have are any sort of concealed carry or plainclothes armed people under any circumstances. Even on a military base, they don't like to do that, and there's good reasons for that. I do think that we need to revisit the question of arming the SROs. I don't have a firm position on that right now, to be perfectly frank, because we need to rely on security experts to fill us in what to do there. But yes, we should reopen that question.
Thank you. And Ashley?
So I'm not in favor of rearming SROs. SROs, yeah. I always keep flipping them, so I had to catch myself. And the reason why is we don't have any data to back up that claim. In fact, I have a report right here in my hand, just from this month, that says the opposite, that more guns in our schools make things more dangerous. Just this month, last week in Florida, an armed SRO fired off a gun accidentally inside a school because he had it held up. I don't know what he was doing with it or why, but he thought it was unloaded, and it went off through a wall into a classroom and was stopped by a bookshelf. I'm not okay with that, and I'm happy to take that position. As far as how we can make our schools a more positive environment, we need to start really addressing mental health, because that goes back to school violence. If we look at the mental health of our students and we get them healthy earlier, they're less likely to create acts, because most of the time, those who choose to partake in a mass shooting in a school were either a current student or a former student in there. So having an armed SRO inside the building did not deter them from doing that action.
Okay, thank you. And Tabitha?
I think as a board, we should be taking every step available to ensure a safe environment for students and staff, and this includes a robust SRO program that's integrated into and supported by our local police departments. I think that we should be allowing our SROs to have all the training and tools necessary to do the jobs that we're asking them to do. SROs should be carefully selected and placed where they can build rapport with both students and faculty. I think that we should be engaging our students in these safety measures. Students see things differently, and getting their perspective on ways to increase safety will help identify gaps and get their buy-in as to why certain protocols are in place. Giving students a role in creating their environment increases accountability and their overall engagement in creating a safe environment. I also believe that we should be addressing the mental health side of things. I would like to see a student assistance program implemented, similar to many employers have employee assistance programs that give them access to mental health resources and such, and then just open up a broad range of resources. And I would like to see MCC look into and implement something similar.
Thank you. And Erin?
Well, this certainly is a complex issue that it will be hard for me to respond to in 90 seconds, but I believe that we should take a proactive approach to school safety where we are trying to identify potential violence and intervene when there's concern. For example, we know when there was the shooting at Oxford High School in Michigan, the shooter had actually been identified as a potential problem and was allowed to remain at school. So I think by having policies in place involving social workers and mental health professionals and perhaps law enforcement, we can end the cycle of violence before it starts. I think we also need to work with families more on the safe storage of handguns in the home, because children should not be in a place where they can access a gun at home to bring it into school. So working with families, connecting them with programs where they can receive free locks for their guns and so forth. I think just overall providing or promoting a more positive climate, we can do that by working with students to try and regulate their emotions and respond to others' emotions, and being able to resolve conflict through things like social emotional learning and programs that can kind of help students learn to manage those emotions. I'm not necessarily in favor of arming SROs because the evidence, at least anecdotally, has not supported it. We know it didn't work in Uvalde. It didn't work in Parkland. I'd be willing to explore the data out there, but like I saw the same article that Ashley shared, and I'm not convinced yet. So I would want to see a lot more research on the topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, thank you. So Carrie is starting to collect some questions, which is great. So this is the last one from ICPE for the moment, and then looking forward to reading yours next. All right, so moving down the row, I think, Daniel, you are up for beginning this one. And it seems like, many of these are complex. We could probably spend, many hours on them in terms of discussion and responses. But for tonight, how about 90 seconds? So, which is stretching it because it was supposed to be 60. So, all right, so here's one that's a bit loaded as well. So in the past year's legislative session, several bills would have restricted what teachers could teach about race, racism, and historical injustice. How should the district handle concepts and content involving race, history, and gender? Again, I'll just repeat the second question in light of the legislative session and what happened. How should the district handle concepts and content involving race, history, and gender? So whenever you're ready, Daniel.
Okay, I'll try to solve all the problems in society in 90 seconds here, but I do not support these bills that have come through in the state legislature. They are really kind of meddlesome attempts to interfere with experts making judgments on curriculum. Now, that's not to say that every approach is correct and that the board shouldn't play a role in really mediating this and ensuring that the values of the community are reflected in the way that we teach these controversial subjects. Despite the fact that my primary discipline right now is anatomy physiology, for a long time I taught educational psychology, and that really delved directly into these matters of identity. I was also the first advisor to the Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students at IU. I actually helped found that group, and we've did wonderful work really in promoting the careers of a number of black doctors as well as a number of other people of all sorts of identities. We were open to everyone. In my own classroom, I've always really focused on inclusion and in meaningful and deep inclusion. Inclusion that factors in both racial and gender identities, but also that deals with other matters. There's all numbers of ways that people can feel excluded. And again, my training in psychology, what a terrible feeling to feel excluded or to feel left out. It's one of the worst motivators. It's what motivates school shootings in many cases. It's what's motivated violence all throughout human history. These people need to feel included. So we must always approach things with an air towards really radical inclusion in our classroom, and to make these things a reality. Thank you.
Okay.
So the bills that came out last year were pretty atrocious, and I have to wonder if a certain legislator hadn't used the word, hadn't used the phrase that we need to put Nazis in the same realm as just about any other group, if those things might not have gone farther than they went. I know they're going to come up next legislative session. We know this. They're going to be there. They're probably going to look pretty much the same. I'm not in favor of either, because we know when these kinds of things crop up, it's not white folks that are being excluded. It's not white straight folks. It's our LGBTQ plus students. It's our BIPOC students. They're getting less access to books about themselves, to material about themselves, and we can't learn to move forward as a society if we don't address the mistakes that we made in the past. Do we like to talk about them? No, especially when we're white, because we are culpable. But that's how we learn to move forward. And we have to do that hard work. And we owe that to our students, and we owe that to our district. We've got a great group of students right now that are working on an anti-racism bullying policy. That's amazing that we had students that recognized what we needed to have done and pushed and pushed and pushed to get that through.
Okay, Tabitha, back over here.
I second that. It is absolutely amazing that we have students that are pushing for that. I do find it embarrassing that we didn't already have that, to be completely honest. I have a stance where I feel like we shouldn't necessarily be focusing on all of the things that make us different, but more of the things that we have in common in order to be inclusive. If we think about the things that bring us together, sporting events, concerts, clubs. Those are all things that we find that we have in common with other people. And we're focusing on all of our differences, and that's driving us further apart as a society, as a nation, as a whole. I do think that we have a long way to go in addressing equity and issues in the school system. I don't know that our approach right now is the right one. I don't support banning books and throwing things out. I would like to see taking a different approach, such as creating high school electives that allow students to opt into this information and to further study the history of racism and such. We have electives that allow students to focus on weightlifting for gym or for sporting events, but we don't have electives that allow them to research specific issues related to what they may identify as. Sorry, I'm saying all the wrong words right now, but sorry. I would just like to see us take a different approach.
Great. Thank you.
Again, 90 seconds. I kind of wish I took auctioneer training before I came tonight. But I want to also add that if, I'm going to try and be concise, but I did provide my responses in writing to the ICPE, so you should be able to see my full remarks on this. But I will just say I think it would be extremely remiss not to be able to talk about things that happened in our own country's history in terms of things like genocide or in slavery, because if we don't address these issues and talk about them, there's the saying that those who don't remember history are due to repeat it. So I would be opposed to trying to stop teaching about those topics. I will just also add that I've mentioned before, I'm a registered nurse, and I teach students how to become a registered nurse, and it's a profession where we serve people of all ages, races, gender identities, sexual orientations, religions, etc. And the students who do the best in those programs are ones who can actually approach things like race and gender identity and have conversations about it. And so I think there's a way to introduce things in a non-controversial, non-political way, even at younger ages, so that we can prepare our students to interact with people in the outside world. So yes, again, you can read my written responses.
You're talking about bills. I don't know what bills you guys are talking about. I apologize. I'm not up with the legislative bills. But as far as history and everything, I think the history should be incorporated in the schools because it teaches about everything. And equity, equity and racism, I think it needs to be reintroduced to the school system, to all the students.
Okay. All right, we received, Daniel, I almost forgot. Oh, we started with you, that's right. We're starting with Ashley on this next question. Just double checking. Good, I have my notes here. Great, thank you. Okay, so I think the next question we received from the audience is a great follow-up to this one. So I think 60 seconds, perhaps, just because it's more of a follow-up, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. So, all right, so the question is racial equity in schools is significant to BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous, people of color students, their sense of belonging, well-being, and academic success. What are your goals for MCCSC schools in addressing racial equity, both academically and socially? So actually, let's do 90 for this one, because, all of them need some more time. So I'll read that one more time. So racial equity in schools is significant to BIPOC students, their sense of belonging, well-being, and academic success. What are your goals for MCCSC schools in addressing racial equity, both academically and socially? And Ashley, I believe you're first. Mm-hmm.
So I've talked about a little bit of it already. One is addressing school boundary lines, making sure those are equitable for all of our students. We haven't looked at those in quite some time, and so we need to take a look at those. The demographics here in Monroe County and the population have changed probably since the last time, so we need to look at those. I also think we need to meet our marginalized students where they are. So, for example, I was talking about the high ability program earlier. I would like to see us maybe go to the Boys and Girls Club and pitch that to our families there, meet them where they are on a regular basis. I think that's important. I don't know that that's happening right now. Was racial equity and it was... And
Socially.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm not sure if I have anything else to add really that I haven't already said. The only other thing that I could think of is continuing to address the disciplinary discrepancies that we have with our marginalized populations. It's at a higher rate than it is for white students. So more work needs to be done there, but it's my understanding that our strategic plan has some of these things in place to start addressing these issues.
Okay, and coming back over here, Tabitha.
These are all really good questions, and I don't have the answers as being someone who is not of color. So I would be dependent on getting with the students and the parents that are struggling in those areas and finding out what they want to happen. I'm not an expert there, and I can admit that, and I want to see those equities addressed. I agree with the redistricting. My son's school does not have a lot of people of color. We have sent him to the Boys and Girls Club to expose him more to different diverse people, and that has helped a lot. Our younger son went to a different elementary school who did have more diverse populations. So I absolutely think redistricting is something that we should look at, but I don't have the answers.
Okay, so how I would ideally address racial equity. So I think they're, again, very complex but very important issue. And again, I am also very happy to see the Student Equity Ambassador Program existing and getting started, but I think in order for us to really leverage that is for us to be in touch regularly with these students and see what kind of feedback they can give us so we can make positive changes so that we can address these racial equity issues. But I really think it's important to work on and again, this is ideal if everything was perfect, but working on a curriculum that can address assess students holistically, because we know that things like standardized multiple choice exams are often biased towards white folks, and be able to promote educational experiences that can prepare a lot of these kids are first generation college students. So whether they go off to a vocational school or a 4-year college or a 2-year college, being able to help them be prepared. And whether we accomplish that by getting some mentors from the college community, maybe the sororities and fraternities who have a cultural focus that are historically, Black students or Asian students, to be able to kind of mentor those students. But I think there's a lot of opportunities out there if we just open our eyes and be creative. So thank you.
There's not really a good answer. I think everybody ought to have the same opportunity, Black, person of color, white, Asian, Hispanic. I think everybody ought to have the equal opportunity that everybody has. Everybody ought to have the same opportunity as a higher education. And, you know, back when I went to school, I went to Bloomington South, bachelor, Broadview. And I think should try to get back to it. There wasn't much of an issue, and I've spent a lot of time at Boys and Girls Club in my younger days. And, you know, a lot of friends was Derek Cross was one of my good friends. I don't know if anybody knows Derek. But everybody got along just like normal. And I think that's what we should work towards.
Okay, thanks.
One difference in the background I bring here is that I have literally worked on this issue for 2 decades. As a grad student, first as an MD PhD student, who did a tremendous amount of work on increasing access of minoritized students to medical school. And then further work in my really decade as a grad student in the School of Education. Now, I apologize for being a grad student that long, but sometimes careers don't work out like you want. I work at Ivy Tech right now. We educate more minority students than any other higher education institution in the state. We educate a higher proportion of minority students than any other higher education in the state, and we do a good job of it. I have made inclusion, meaningful inclusion, an important part of my career from the start. There are no easy answers to this in schools, but it really begins from a professional standpoint from having good, clear policies, behavioral policies and academic policies that are compassionately but consistently applied. A lot of the disparity in education comes in when too much leeway is applied in a policy. Now, there's a fine line to draw there. We don't want to be rigid ever in what we do, but at the same time, we want to make sure that teachers are guided and given the assistance and the support, and that they can rely on the support of their administrators in applying appropriate consequences, both positive and negative, compassionately to students really of all races, genders, of all identities. This is absolutely critical to maintaining a safe environment. That's one of the biggest problems that minoritized students face is a lack of safety. So that's where I come down on this issue. Thank you very much. I can see my time is up, so I'll stop.
All right. All right, we're moving the next one to 30 seconds. So just because it's direct, I think, and that should be plenty. And we have just enough questions to just fit in the time if we do a little adaptation. So we're going to roll with it. And we're back here, starting with Tabitha. And the question from the audience again is, as a school board member, how will you engage students in the conversation? School board members, how will you engage students in the conversation? So you have a moment to think and jump right in, Tabitha.
No pressure.
None whatsoever, right?
That's a great question. I don't know what all of our options are. You could start with surveying students and asking what kind of committees they would like to be involved in. I think if we start asking the questions, we're going to get a variety of answers, but that's somewhere to start. Starting at each school and each level, I would like to engage all students. I mean, high school students are going to have a lot to offer, but if we start at the elementary level and start talking about it younger, then it'll come more naturally as they get older.
So how I would engage students in the conversation, I think this is a really great question because students are a huge stakeholder in the public schools. And I think that there are a number of ways we could do it, and like Tabitha, I think it's important to do that even at early ages because it's important for students to know they are an important part of our community regardless of their age. But I do think that we could try to do things like put surveys maybe on their iPad or Chromebook landing page or something just to kind of get a little climate check to see what they think of is how things are going, or maybe have ways they can submit questions or suggestions at the school, maybe have listening days where the board can have kind of a convocation. But, without having time to think about it ahead of time, I would just say, those are a couple different ways, just making sure that the students have an open line of communication with us. And survey seems like the easiest way to go about it. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think more board members should be going to more functions of students. Elementary, middle school, high school, I think they need to attend more functions, athletic events, concerts, and maybe invite students to a couple board meetings or something. Let them talk about what's on their minds, what's on the agendas, and like they said, maybe incorporate a survey.
Let me go ahead and confess something that's a shocker here, but I'm a giant nerd. And one of my defining moments in high school was when, as a 16-year-old, I got to address the school board directly, and I actually delivered a petition that I'd put together with over 1,200 names signed on it. This is in support of the Block 8 schedule at Bloomington North, and I know there's a few veterans in the audience here who remember that fight. It was actually a rather intense one. There were some school board members who weren't that thrilled, really, about the petition I put in there, but they listened to me. And that was incredibly meaningful. That helped shape me into maybe even contribute to the huge mistake I've made to run for school board today. But hopefully it's a joke, and we're all clear on that. But tough crowd here. But I think that's what I'll pledge to do. I want to see every student have that same opportunity. I want to see every student, regardless of their background and identity, be listened to, be taken seriously, and having a chance to address us, to petition us for redress, to use the nerdy political science language, and to have a chance to feel included. That includes in the classroom, that includes in the board. So out of time, so thank you very much.
So, can you slide that over? Thank you. So I have a few things. John mentioned one already. School board members should be doing more to get in our schools at all levels to see what's going on in there. And in fact, we're encouraged as board members. Sorry. I'm supposed to take my meds now. So it's 8 o'clock. But as I was saying, that's something that board members are encouraged to do. I also think being a mom and being a PTO president uniquely suits me to already have this deeper connection. I'm running for school board right now, but I've been slowly working to get PTO presidents together in a meeting, which used to happen, to see what's happening in our schools. So it's another way to connect other schools together to hopefully have some of that cross board member work to get into schools. And so those are some of the things that I thought of when this question came up.
Okay. I think you did a great job in 30 seconds or less, everyone, so thank you. And I think the next one will be brief as well, so we're going to go for another 30 seconds if it's not too much pressure on everyone. And this time we'll start with Aaron, and everybody had a chance to respond to the last question, right? Just making sure. So the question is very straightforward. Do you support the referendum? Why or why not?
I absolutely do support the referendum. The literature that was passed out earlier, I think I've looked at this several times, but I think 93% of it will go to pay teacher and staff salaries, which is extremely important that we are compensating our teachers. They deserve, this is talking about a $4,500 raise per teacher and increasing staff wages by $2.25 an hour. So that is absolutely necessary. Our staff and our teachers are great, and they should be compensated as such. So thank you. My time is up.
Yes, I do support it for the simple fact that the teachers need to be paid, faculty, staff, and if it doesn't go through, then we lose a lot of teachers.
I 100% solidly support the referendum. Again, as I mentioned before, I was the campaign manager of the 2016 referendum, which is now expiring, and for which this is the refund. I put in many hours of my life all through September and October of that year, running the campaign, coordinating and training all the volunteers, and I did that because we flat out need this. The way that Indiana has moved to financing schools really requires communities to pass this. So it's not an add-on or a bonus. It's a crucial part of our funding to stay competitive, which is really a shame, to tell you the truth. I don't support that as an overall strategy, but given that that's the reality we live in, we must pass this referendum.
I know this will be a shocker, but I too support the referendum, just like everyone else here. If it doesn't pass, we go on a fiscal cliff, and we don't need to be in that space. Most of it's going to go to teachers and staff when it passes, because it will pass. I have every confidence in this community that we'll do what needs to be done here. But with the remaining referendum dollars, I want to see that put towards our special education programs. I'm a mom of a kid with an IEP, and I understand the importance of those programs for our students.
I do support the referendum. Similar to what Daniel said, I don't like the way that it's set up to where we are dependent on the referendum to give our teachers the salaries that they deserve. But that's where we're at right now. And so I think it would be a devastating move for our community if it does not pass.
Okay, moving right along. I think that the next question is probably very direct enough to be able, for 30 seconds or less, if you all don't mind, you're on a roll now. Seem to be handling it very well. It seems like it. So if a group came to a school board meeting claiming to represent local concerned parents, and yes, John, we'll start with you. A group came representing local concerned parents asking that certain books be banned from instruction or removed from the library. What would your response be? Would you consider removing those books?
I would consider it, yes, I would, but everybody has to be in agreement on the board. And I will hear the parents' concerns.
One of the things I have to do in my role at Ivy Tech is work with students of widely different political persuasions. We draw in our service area, the city of Bloomington. We draw all the surrounding counties as well, and there's some huge differences there. I'm used to navigating respectfully and negotiating occasionally tough things. In anatomy, we do deal with some controversial subjects, believe it or not. And I've done a very good job, I think, of making sure everyone's heard and listened. So the truth of the matter is, as abhorrent as I find book burning, I am going to listen to the parents and make sure that they do feel heard. But that said, no, we are going to leave this in the hands of our professionals as librarians to make appropriate decisions as what should be contained within the libraries with the goals of all students in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, I would be there to listen to any parent, anyone who comes to school board to air a grievance and ask for something. However, I would be asking a lot of questions about what kind of books are you asking us to ban, and why are you asking them to ban? As Lisa said earlier, asking curious questions instead of creating a space of hostility at first. I'm done.
Thank you. Timekeeper, thank you. And Tabitha, thanks.
I would always listen and listen to understand and seek to understand their concerns. But in general, I don't support banning or removing books from libraries. I think that I think there's a difference in providing the resources if students want to actively seek them out versus forcing students to read certain books. But I wouldn't be in support of removing something from a library just because you don't want students to have access to it.
Okay, so
I too would listen to the parents' concerns. They have the right during the public comment sections of board meetings, but like I would ask of all my students, I would ask for their reasons in writing with citations, because I also do not really support banning of books either, unless there were very few exceptions. But of course, they have the right to bring up concerns.
Okay, I think everybody's had a chance then. Okay, and Daniel, you'll begin the next question. I think we're going to have time for all of them, so thanks for all the submissions. These are really wonderful questions. So Daniel, and I think we'll allow 60 seconds, but if you finish shorter, go for it. So what is your understanding of how charter schools and vouchers affect public school funding? And it might be 30 seconds, but we'll give 60 just in case.
That's actually fairly straightforward. I mean, any siphoning of funding away from the public schools harms our students. I absolutely support the right of private schools to exist, and make no mistake, the way that Indiana does charter schools, it is very different across different states. I'm sorry, I'm a wonk on this, so I could really talk way too long. But the way that Indiana does this, these are really private schools that are simply capturing public funding. There's an important principle in a democracy that tax dollars need to be controlled by the voters and by elected bodies. And when we have charter schools that essentially are not answerable to the boards themselves that oversee the collection of these tax funds, we're really, I mean, it's taxation without representation is the simple truth of the matter. That's what our model of charter schools do here. So I want to be clear, the school board doesn't really have the power to stop or fix this. But to the extent that we can speak up and raise our voices, we should lobby the state legislature to really understand this, not as a question of parental choice. Parental choice should and can exist and coexist with this, but as a question of taxation.
So obviously, as Dan said, it impacts our schools in massive ways. It siphons millions and millions of dollars out of our school system. And there is no public oversight. They don't have a elected board like we do for public schools. So they can place anyone they want on their boards, and we have no say in that. And so, as he said, it is a lot like taxation without representation because we don't have a voice in that. We know for the most part these don't work for our students, especially when we're talking about vouchers. They negatively impact our schools, and we're finding that they're really not doing the things that they're supposedly set out to do. I agree, lobbying legislation, the legislative sessions are super important, and I'm glad that in this community we have a really robust team of people that are out there busting their butts every February when these things roll out.
All right, Tabitha.
This is an area that I personally need to do more research on because I don't have a hard stance on this because I support families having the right to choose the education that's best for their children without cost barriers being the deciding factor. And as a parent, if I'm also paying taxes and I want to use a voucher to send my child to another school because it's a better fit for them, I would like that opportunity. So I see pros and cons to both sides of it, so I don't have a hard stance.
So as far as how charter schools and vouchers affect public schools, just like Dan said and Ashley said, they do funnel the dollars away from our already underfunded public schools. The board, again, is not publicly elected, so they aren't as accountable to the public as a public school would be. And there are problems with charter schools. They have a higher rate of teacher turnover, and oftentimes they don't meet certain standards and have to close, which ends up affecting students negatively and disrupting their education. So but also I agree. Private schools exist and parents do have a choice, but I don't necessarily agree with public dollars funding private schools.
I think everybody has come to agreement, and I'm right with them. It does take away tax dollars from the public schools. I don't have a stance on this, but I just know it does take dollars away from the public schools.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. And let's see, I think we'll have time for 2 more questions before closing remarks. So, and I think this could be pretty direct as well. So we're going to go back to 30 seconds for a bit if we can. And we're going to start with Ashley. And so what are your thoughts about parent involvement and transparency toward parents by school board candidates?
So as a PTO president, I obviously feel pretty strongly about parent involvement. It not only helps our students, but it also keeps the school connected because it really is a community there. So I am 110% for community involvement, while also recognizing that that can be difficult for some families. In terms of, was it school board?
Yes, school,
Okay.
well, the relationship between the school board
Parents and school
candidates
board.
and
Thank
with
you.
parents, yes.
So that relationship, again, I think it's we're there to listen and advocate for our parents as they need us to be there for them, as always. But again, I want to see as much involvement as possible.
I 100% support parental involvement with the school board. I like the new tool that they've added to where you can submit feedback prior to meetings. I think that if we had better transparency, usually we find out what's going to be on the agenda 2 or 3 days before, and then parents go wild on Facebook with opinions. Whereas the board may have already seen that ahead of time. And so their votes, like they've already addressed some of the questions that parents have. And if we were more transparent about that, I don't think parents would show up as irate at times as what they do. Time's up.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question about, do I support parent involvement in school board?
What are your thoughts about that? What
Okay.
about parent involvement and transparency toward the parents by school board candidates?
Oh, of course. And as I think all 3 of us up here are moms, so I think there should be parent involvement, and I think that parents should be able to know that information should be publicly available, what the board will be discussing and voting on. And I think that parents should be encouraged to make their voice heard at meetings and contact their school board members.
I agree with parent involvement. I think the parents should be invited to all the school board meetings, not the closed doors, but open. They should be involved with the student schools, and I think the school board ought to listen to every parent.
Well, certainly candidates should be transparent to parents as they should be to all voters. The simple truth of the matter is that we all pay taxes to support public schools, and there's a good reason that we all do that. They actually benefit everyone, not just parents and students. All of us benefit from having strong public schools in a community. It's one of the top drivers of economics. It is absolutely incumbent upon us ethically as candidates and ultimately as elected officials, for those of us who are fortunate or unfortunate enough to win. That was a joke again, by the way. You guys are allowed to laugh. But that we stay transparent. So that's my position there.
So last question before closing comments, and we could go 60 seconds. I think we have just enough time, and if you need to wrap it up sooner, that's fine too. And we'll start with Tabitha for the last question from the audience. Please share your views on teachers and school social workers teaching social emotional learning and why you do or do not support it.
I do support social emotional learning. I don't necessarily agree with the way that it's happening right now. I think that some of our teachers need more support in what they, okay, let me start over. See, this is where I struggle with, because if I'm having a hard time talking about it, then how are kids handling talking about some of these hard topics? And that's why I think social emotional learning is important, but also we have to find a way to be supportive in the way that we are doing that with our students. Some of the topics that are aimed at sexuality make lots of students uncomfortable, and I know that that's the goal, and in some instances for those who don't identify as something that is not heterosexual. But again, if I'm having issues talking about it in this room, then how are my kids having issues talking about it? Those are some of the topics that I have found that my student is dealing with in social emotional learning. My time is up. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sure. Okay, so I think that I support social emotional learning. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there about what constitutes social emotional learning. I believe some people conflate SEL with critical race theory, which just simply isn't a thing that is taught in K through 12 schools. But as far as what social emotional learning is in terms of teaching students to be able to manage their emotions, manage their feelings, be able to hear other people's side of the story, regulate their behaviors and things like that, I support that. And whether, I don't know, I'll just leave it there. So I do think that SEL is a good thing.
I support emotional learning. It can be a variety of things. Emotional learning can be dealing with can be parents passing away. For me, that was emotional when I went to school. But I support it 100%.
At risk of taking a more controversial position, I solidly support an appropriate amount of social-emotional learning, but we are overdoing it in MCCSC right now. That's a problem that's going on in a lot of school districts. This is a typical thing in education, is as new things come in, we often over-embrace them at first, and then we settle into a more appropriate level. I believe that we need to do that. I see the output of what we've got coming from MCCSC at Ivy Tech with students coming in. We have to stay focused on the primary mission of schools, which fundamentally is to give students a proper preparation with rigorous education in their content areas. Now, that can and should include social emotional learning, things we classify that in terms of how they deal with it. In higher education, we tend to call it metacognition, and we do spend time on that, and we should. But we do need to make sure that we are delivering to students the primary product of the schools, and that is the education that they deserve and that they need to be successful. And we have some work to do on getting that balance. That is, in fact, one of the primary motivators of why I'm running here. I want to see that we give our students the rigorous education they deserve. Thank you.
Yes, I absolutely support it. Like Aaron said, it is helping managing emotions. And anyone in this room who's a parent knows what that can look like from time to time when your kid's having a hard time relaying what's going on. And that's part of what our schools are here for, because our motto is empowering students to maximize their educational success to become productive, responsible global citizens. This is part of that piece. It's not just academics, but it's also how are we helping these little humans become full human beings that are wonderful and can go out into the world and really be productive kids and know what it's like to feel left out. And that's the things that social emotional learning helps with. I'm done.
Okay, well, we're at that time, so grateful for all of you for being with us. We're going to hear closing words from each candidate in our usual format that we have tonight. We'll start with Aaron, moving down the row, and each of you will have 30 seconds to share closing words. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to thank all of you for taking time this evening to come out and give us a chance to address your questions and for listening. And I just want to tell anyone who wants to learn more about me and my campaign, you can learn more about me at www.nurseerinforschoolboard.com, and you can sign up to volunteer or ask me questions through the website there. And so yeah, just to sum it up, I am running because I am a mom, a nurse, an educator, and a scholar, and I hope that can really help bring a different view to the board, or a new view to the board.
What were we talking about? Oh, you know, all these candidates are good for the school board, and I don't have a website. I don't have anything. So if you need to know anything about me, hey, I'm here. I'll talk to you. And I'd like to have your vote. Thanks.
Well, I'd just like to thank again all the sponsors and Tri-North Middle School for hosting this, and again, all my candidates for really putting ourselves out here to stand up here. It's a tough thing to do. We cannot assume that our schools will simply remain among the very best automatically. We need to pass the current referendum to properly fund them, and we shouldn't just assume it's going to happen. We need to go out and make it happen. We need to continue to make certain that we identify and reward and support great teaching and great teachers in our schools. Great teachers deserve to be promoted, called out, and rewarded for what they do. Finally, we need to anticipate what our students will need to learn to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. Workers, human beings, and parents, thank you all so much for attending.
Thank you again for, I'm sorry. I was like, why can I not hear myself? Thank you again, everyone, for attending this evening, and thank you to the ICPE for hosting this forum. It's one of the small ways that folks can get to learn about us. Again, my name is Ashley Pirani, and I'm running for the School Board Trustee, District 3. If you want to learn more about my campaign, you can email me at the number 4, district3@gmail.com, or you can visit our website at apfordistrict3.com.
I too would like to thank everyone for coming tonight, for hosting tonight, for moderating. It was a good opportunity for all of us to hear each other's platforms and support each other as well. I think that we all have the same goal. We want to raise our kids and produce good humans and productive members of the society. So if you would like to learn more about me, you could email me at tabithacrouch@gmail.com, or you could visit my Facebook page, Tabitha Crouch for MCCSC School Board.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. It takes a lot of courage and focus and clarity to be up here and to share. So let's give them a round of applause. Great. And just a few closing words. I'd like to share just a few kind of summary highlights of our time together, and then I'll pass it over to Carrie, and we will wrap up in 5 minutes or less. So just to say thank you again for everyone. That there's been a lot of expressions of gratitude. Just to echo that a little bit, there's been such caring and thoughtful responses tonight, really reflective of each candidate's beliefs and where they're coming from, the viewpoint, and what they care about, and it really came through. I found it very informative and knowledgeable, and hopefully all of you did as well, to help you with your voting decisions. I work at IU, and a part of what we do is we do a big campaign called Down the Ballot, which means look down far the ballot and make sure you pay attention to those voting choices you have toward the end of the ballot. They're really critical. They are our community. They affect our community, and it's good to be reminded of that tonight and to remind others about it as well moving forward. So it takes a lot of courage and strength to be here to talk about hard topics, and those were not easy questions. So thank you again, and thank you all again, and I will invite Carrie back up here to share some closing remarks. I'm going to move so she could have this seat, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to be here. So thank you all very much, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, thank you all for coming out. Thank you for juggling the microphones tonight. You all did amazing. And thank you all for coming out. This is democracy, people coming out and listening and being a part of community. This COVID was long, and I'm so glad that we're back in person for these things. I just have a few things to say. Don't forget, join us. KeepEducationPublic.org is our website. We need members. In regards to our members, it took a lot of members to run tonight. They're all in the audience. If we can just give them a round of applause thank you so much for helping make this happen. Lisa Marie, thank you so much. And then I want to say I am also voting yes for the referendum. I had this huge thing to say about it, but you guys all covered it really well. But I do want to point out, there are 3,000 open positions in Indiana right now in the public schools, half of which are teachers. That is extraordinary. That is not normal. And we as a district need to remain competitive and offer competitive salaries in order to fill all of the positions within our district. And that is one main reason that we need to continue to vote yes for these tax levies. And finally, I want to say, thank you to MCCSC for allowing us to use this beautiful space, this brand new school, our tax dollars. We truly are a community that cares about public education and the future. And I also want to say thanks again to all of our co-sponsors. In terms of the survey we were talking about, the panel here, those answers will be on our website on the MCCSC School Board webpage. We'll also have a link to the CATS filming of this event, and all of that will be up in the next couple days. So anyway, don't forget, have a good night. Don't forget, Election Day is November 8th. Well done, everybody. All right, good night. Thank you.